There are a number of strategies that we put in place to really take our team's expertise to the next level. The first is we try to make everybody hybrid experts. And what I mean by that is there's media research, there's digital analytics, and there's primary research. And most of the time those functions are really siloed. So what we've tried to do is give everybody the opportunity to build their expertise in those three areas. By having a more holistic perspective, it really benefits not only everybody on the team, but also our constituents, because they're getting a more fuller picture of what's happening with consumers. The second is we really try to reuse all of the information that we gather. So my team supports our brands and our content teams, and we also support our advertisers and our agencies. And oftentimes those teams have the same needs. So anytime we can reuse data, research, insights, it's really great because it allows us to be much more efficient and connect the dots between what consumers are seeing with our sites and also how they're interacting with brands. I think the third element is we've really tried to operationalize data rather than treating data, research, and insights as a series of one-offs. So how do we make information available on demand? And by bringing the information closer to our stakeholders, it allows a layer of transparency as well as accountability and an elevated sense of engagement with our team and with the insight and research function. I think the next one that comes to mind is it's all about a transparent and rigorous process. We didn't really have that when we started to rebuild this team. And so by making sure that everybody, not only on my team, but also on our stakeholders' teams, really understands that we have a true process in place. And by sticking to that process, it allows them to hold me accountable for my deliverables. And it also ensures that we're doing the right stuff that's going to meet their needs. So if you can't articulate the process, it's a great place to start. The last thing I would say is research and analytics types tend to focus on the how and not necessarily the what. So the first step of our process is really defining the problem. And we spend an inordinate amount of time really making sure that everybody is completely agreed on what the objective is and what the problem actually is. We have a rule that we never talk about methodology, we never talk about analytical schemes, we never talk about where the data is going to come from until we've defined the problem. And that brings a certain level of clarity to the work that we do. We've done a tremendous amount of work with mobile and really understanding how people are interacting with mobile devices, smartphones and tablets. And there's a number of things that come to mind. I think the first is, I don't think we do ourselves justice by calling it mobile, because mobile isn't oftentimes actually mobile. What we find for smartphones, for example, is that 68% of all the time that people spend with their phones occurs at home, not while they're out and about. And so right there, that just reframes the strategic opportunity for marketing in those devices. And for tablets, it's even higher because fewer people have cell plans, data plans enabled on their tablets. The second is mobile use is mostly around what we call me time. Nearly half of all the moments that people engage with their phone are motivated by the desire to escape, unwind, or relax. And so it's not out and about, it's not in a store checking out prices. It's actually when people are on the couch, when they're watching TV, when they're bored, they take out their phone, they check out the latest headlines, they play a game, they check email, they check their social networks, all of those kinds of things. So it's really important to understand that to consumers, while it is a utility device, it's not only a utility device, it's so much more. And what they say is that it's mostly about this idea of me time. The last is, and we found something very interesting in our data, which is everybody always presumes that younger people are going to be the heaviest users of mobile devices. But what we found is actually moms with young kids, so infants and toddlers, basically under the age of 5, are in fact the heaviest users of their phones. They use their phones 40% more than the general population. And so it serves so many different needs. And for advertisers targeting moms, especially moms with younger kids, it's a really great channel to be able to communicate with them. You know, what's fascinating about working in media is that it's always changing and it's always evolving. And despite the fact of what the technology was built for, people have a very interesting way of just taking these devices and taking access and making it personal to them and meaningful to them. So some of the things that we've noticed are a pervasive aspect of video. Video's everywhere. People are constantly consuming video on all of their devices, and a lot of times multiple video streams even in the same room. I don't think we've done enough to really understand the impact that that has on things like message recall and how advertising actually works. It's a very fragmented video experience. So how can advertising work better? And so the things that we've been focusing on are, is it just taking TV creative and putting it in a mobile device or even putting it online? Or are there specific rules of engagement that apply because we're outside of a TV environment? The second is, I think it's really easy to sort of undercount the amount of time that's spent on mobile. But one of our analyses showed that 25% of all time spent with digital occurs via mobile devices at home. That's a phenomenal change in a very short amount of time. And it's growing. So pretty soon, it might very well be half or even more than that. Really understanding how people are using their phones to do so many different things is going to be at the core of how brands are relevant in that type of environment. The next thing is that the data is very clear. We find ourselves in an always-on shopping environment. The more access you have and the more connectivity you have to the internet, the more chances people have to actually shop. And that's exactly what happens. So something like 92% of everyone shops at least weekly online. And there's a very interesting dynamic that happens when people shop constantly, which is they do a really good job of building their brand preferences. So despite the fact that marketing is real time and KPIs can be measured and optimized in real time, brand preferences are actually set over the long term. And so I think for advertisers, the implication there is that brands are actually more important than they ever have been. 50% of all purchases that occur, people knew what brands they were going to buy before they got into that active shopping window. That includes appliances and cell phones and computers and tablets and all of these things that are considered goods. It's because people are shopping constantly and they build those brand preferences in their mind so that when it becomes time to activate the occasion to shop, they already know what brands they're going to buy. So if you don't have a strong brand going into that, you're probably too late.